Picture this, brother. You've spent the last 6 months becoming a better man. You read the books. You went to therapy. You learned to communicate your feelings. You stopped being emotionally unavailable. You listen when she talks, really listen. You remember the small things. Her favorite coffee order. The story about her coworker she told you 3 weeks ago. You plan thoughtful dates. You're present. You're vulnerable. You've become, by every modern metric, the perfect boyfriend. And that's exactly when everything started falling apart. She picks fights over nothing. The way you loaded the dishwasher. How you said hello when you got home. She's cold when you reach for her. Distant when you try to connect. The sex that used to be passionate and frequent? Now it's scheduled. Obligatory. Sometimes she just isn't in the mood. 4 weeks. You start walking on eggshells, analyzing every word, every gesture. What did I do wrong? You ask yourself at 3 in the morning while she sleeps peacefully beside you. What am I missing? Here's what's eating you alive. You're doing more than you ever did in the beginning. More effort. More attention. More emotional labor. And somehow, you're receiving less than you got when you were inconsistent, less available, and frankly, worse. The confusion is maddening, isn't it? Because you followed the script. You did what every relationship expert, every therapist, every women's magazine told you to do. You showed up. You did the work. You became the man she said she wanted. And she's punishing you for it. Let me tell you something that's going to change how you see every relationship for the rest of your life. You're not being punished for doing something wrong. You're being punished for doing everything right. And once you understand why, you'll never fall for this trap again. What I'm about to tell you contradicts everything you've been taught about love and relationships. But it's backed by evolutionary biology, neuroscience, and the lived experience of millions of men who've walked this exact path. Women's attraction operates on 2 separate systems. 2 completely different programs running simultaneously, often in direct conflict with each other. There's her conscious mind, the part that talks, that tells you what she wants. Security, kindness, emotional intelligence, a partner who communicates, a man who's not afraid to be vulnerable. Then there's her subconscious biology, her hardwired programming. 200,000 years of evolution encoded into her nervous system. And this part responds to something entirely different. Uncertainty, challenge, genetic fitness indicators, social dominance, the primal markers of a man who can protect, who can lead, who other people respect. Here's the brutal part, brother. These 2 systems don't just conflict. They're often complete opposites. Let me explain the chemistry. In the beginning, when you were less available, when the outcome was uncertain, when she didn't quite have you figured out, her brain was flooded with dopamine. The neurotransmitter of pursuit, of reward anticipation, of desire. Every text from you was a hit. Every date was exciting. The uncertainty kept her nervous system activated in exactly the way that creates what we call attraction. But then you became the perfect boyfriend. Predictable. Available. Safe. You triggered a chemical shift in her brain. Dopamine drops. Oxytocin rises. The bonding hormone. The attachment chemical. Now, oxytocin isn't bad. It creates intimacy, trust, connection. But here's what nobody tells you. Oxytocin and desire are inversely related. The more comfortable she becomes, the less attracted she is. It's not a bug. It's a feature. For 200,000 years, women's survival depended on solving an impossible equation, securing resources from a stable provider while ensuring genetic quality from attractive mates. The ideal scenario? Get both in one man. The reality? These traits rarely coexist in nature. So our biology evolved a mechanism. Testing behavior. Constant probing. Constant assessment. Making sure the man she's bonded to hasn't become weak. Making sure the strength she was initially attracted to still exists beneath the comfort and routine. When you became perfect, you didn't just become safe. You became boring. Predictable. Easy. And her nervous system interpreted that as a problem that needs solving. Think about it. The man she met 6 months ago, he was building something. He had purpose. He had boundaries. He didn't always respond immediately. He had a life she was invited into, not a life that revolved around her. That man activated her pursuit system. But the man you became? The one who's always available, always understanding, always accommodating? You activated her comfort system. And comfort, my friend, is where attraction goes to die. She doesn't want a man she can fully control. She wants a man she's slightly afraid of losing. Not because he's abusive or manipulative, but because he has options. Because he has value that exists independent of her validation. The testing begins when she needs to know, are you still that man? Or did I just domesticate a wolf into a dog? Let me break down exactly how this testing mechanism works. Because once you see the pattern, you'll recognize it everywhere. It starts small. Subtle. So subtle you don't even register it as a test. She makes a minor complaint about something innocuous. The way you organize the kitchen. How you phrase something in front of her friends. It feels like normal couple communication, right? You apologize. You adjust. You want to be a good partner. But here's what just happened in her subconscious. She pushed, and you immediately bent. She created pressure, and you caved to maintain peace. Her nervous system registered this as, he lacks frame. He'll sacrifice his reality for mine. Test failed. So the tests escalate. Now she's picking fights over things that don't matter. Bringing up issues you thought were resolved weeks ago. Creating emotional turbulence out of nowhere. You're confused because yesterday everything was fine. What changed? Nothing changed externally, brother. This is intentional. Her biology is manufacturing drama because the relationship has become too stable, too predictable. She's creating chaos to see if you can hold your center when emotions are running high. Can you maintain composure when she's escalating? Or does her emotional state control yours? Most men fail here. They get pulled into the argument. They try to logic their way through an emotional test. They apologize for things they didn't do just to restore peace. And with each failed test, her respect drops another notch. Let me give you a real example. A guy I know, we'll call him Marcus. 6 years with his girlfriend. Moved in together. Talked about marriage. By all accounts, doing everything right. She started going out with her single friends more. Girls' nights that turned into late nights. She'd come home and mention, casually, how some guy at the bar bought their table drinks. How her friend's ex-boyfriend still looks good. Little comments. Little seeds. Marcus felt it. That tightness in his chest. That low-grade anxiety. But he didn't say anything. He didn't want to be controlling or insecure. So he smiled. Said, sounds like you had fun. And went to bed with his stomach churning. What was she doing? Testing his boundaries. Testing if he'd allowed disrespect in the name of being the cool boyfriend. Testing if he valued himself enough to enforce standards. He failed. And 6 months later, she left him for someone she met on one of those nights out. Someone who, by her own admission, wasn't as good of a person as Marcus. But someone who made her feel something. Translation: someone who didn't tolerate tests. Someone who had boundaries she couldn't cross. The tests come in waves, brother. They come in layers. There's the emotional test, manufactured drama to see if you'll maintain composure. There's the loyalty test, withdrawal of affection, mentions of other men, creating jealousy to see if you'll chase desperately or if you have abundance. There's the respect test, questioning your decisions, undermining you in public, dismissing your expertise to see if you'll tolerate disrespect to keep the peace. And here's the mechanism that traps most men. The tests create a feedback loop. If you pass, if you hold your boundaries, maintain your frame, stay centered despite her chaos, the testing decreases. Attraction stabilizes or even increases. She feels safe because you're strong enough to handle her at her worst. But if you fail, if you apologize, chase, explain, compromise your reality for hers, the testing doesn't stop. It intensifies. Because now her nervous system is in panic mode. This man is weak. I need to keep testing until I find his limit, until I find the strength I was initially attracted to. And if you never show that strength, if you keep failing every test, eventually, she doesn't just lose attraction. She loses respect. And once respect is gone, brother, the relationship is already over. You're just living in its corpse. Let me give you the signs. The specific behaviors that tell you you're deep in the testing cycle. Pay attention, because most men miss these until it's too late. Sign number 1, increased criticism despite increased effort. You start doing more housework. She criticizes how you do it. You plan a date exactly like she said she wanted. She finds something wrong with it. The goalpost moves every single time you reach it. This isn't about the dishes or the date. She's testing if you need her approval to feel good about yourself. If you'll keep chasing her validation like a dog chasing a car. Sign number 2, the we need to talk frequency spike. Every week there's a new issue that requires a serious discussion. You solve one problem, another appears. The relationship becomes an endless therapy session where you're always the patient. What's really happening? She's manufacturing reasons for serious conversations because tension has disappeared. She's creating problems to see if you'll take responsibility for her emotional state. Sign number 3, sexual withdrawal paired with compliance demands. The intimacy drops off a cliff. But suddenly, there are more requests. More favors. More expectations of what you should do, provide, or handle. You're being converted, brother. From lover to utility. From someone she desires to someone she uses. The provider-lover split is happening in real time. I watched this destroy a friend of mine. 2 years into his relationship, great woman on paper, they moved in together. Within 6 months, sex went from 3 times a week to once every 2 weeks. Then once a month. Then she just wasn't feeling it most of the time. But she had no problem asking him to handle things. Fix her car. Deal with her landlord. Work extra hours so they could afford a better apartment. He was providing everything a boyfriend should provide. He just wasn't being treated like a man she desired. He was being treated like a resource she managed. When he finally confronted it, she said she didn't feel connected to him anymore. Said he changed. The irony? The only thing that changed was how much he'd sacrificed to be what she needed. Sign number 4, the return of her independence. Out of nowhere, she needs space. Wants girls' nights, solo activities, time apart. And you can't question it without being controlling. Now, independence in a relationship is healthy. But when it appears suddenly, after a period of closeness, after you've become more available, that's not independence. That's creating distance. That's testing if you'll pursue or if you have the self-respect to let her go if she doesn't want to be there. Sign number 5, comparison weaponization. Sarah's boyfriend did this amazing thing. You used to be more spontaneous. I miss when you were. She's using other men or your past self as a weapon, communicating that the current version of you is insufficient, testing if you'll scramble to compete or if you'll be secure enough to stay in your own frame. Here's how you know you're in deep. If you're working harder than ever but feeling less appreciated than when you put in minimal effort, you're in the testing escalation cycle. If you can't remember the last time she looked at you with genuine desire, the cycle has already done its damage. And if you're afraid to set a boundary because you think it might be the thing that ends it, brother, it ended a long time ago. You're just afraid to admit it. Now here's what makes this particularly cruel. You didn't figure this out on your own because an entire industry exists to keep you confused. The relationship industrial complex, therapists, coaches, content creators, they profit from keeping you in endless self-improvement loops. Communication pushed as a universal solution. Vulnerability is the answer to every problem. No acknowledgement that these strategies, while good for comfort, are poison for attraction. The advice that keeps women comfortable is not the advice that keeps them attracted. But nobody tells you that. Because if they did, half the relationship advice industry would collapse overnight. Then there's the cultural reprogramming. Masculinity itself has been rebranded. Stoicism became emotional unavailability. Boundaries became controlling behavior. Confidence became arrogance. The very traits that create attraction have been shamed into non-existence. You were taught that being a good man means being soft, accommodating, endlessly understanding. You were taught that setting boundaries is selfish. That maintaining frame is toxic masculinity. So you sanded down every edge you had, hoping to be loved more deeply. And instead, you became forgettable. The media sold you the fantasy. The rom-coms where the sensitive boyfriend wins. The TV shows where emotional availability gets rewarded with eternal devotion. They show you the transformation. They never show you what happens 5 years later when she's bored out of her mind. And when you try to talk about this, when you try to point out that the advice doesn't match the results, you're called bitter, misogynistic, told you're just not doing it right. You're gaslit into believing your experience isn't real. That if the advice isn't working, you're the problem, not the advice. This is the conspiracy, brother. Not some coordinated scheme, but a cultural machine that benefits from your confusion. That profits from your endless attempts to be good enough. That keeps you chasing a version of masculinity that women say they want but biologically don't respond to. They told you to be a better provider while systematically eliminating every lover trait you had. And then they act surprised when she leaves for a man who never read the books. So what happens when the testing never stops? When every attempt to be better just makes things worse? First, you double down. Maybe I'm not doing enough. You read another book. You try harder. You initiate more conversations. You plan more dates. You become hypervigilant, analyzing every interaction for clues about what she needs. And her testing intensifies. Because now you're not just comfortable, you're desperate. And desperation is the least attractive thing in the world. Then you enter the walking on eggshells phase. Every word is calculated. Every action is considered. You're constantly monitoring her mood, trying to prevent the next blow-up, the next criticism, the next test. Your nervous system is in a constant state of low-grade panic. And she can feel it. Her subconscious reads your anxiety as weakness and respects you less for it. The resentment starts to build. You begin to hate the person you've become. You realize you've lost yourself trying to be what she claims to want. You see other men who do less, who are less good, being treated better than you are. And the anger burns beneath the compliance. Eventually, you reach the respect-death spiral. She treats you like a child, talks over you, makes unilateral decisions, dismisses your opinions. The intimacy is gone. The partnership is gone. You've become functionally invisible except as a source of resources or emotional labor. And it ends one of three ways. She leaves, usually for someone who makes her feel alive again. Translation: someone who didn't pass every test. Someone who maintained his edges. Or you stay. You stay in the dead relationship, becoming more bitter, more hollow, more resentful with each passing year. You become the man at the bar, 3 drinks deep, telling younger guys, don't get married. Or, and this is the only real option, you wake up. You choose yourself. You walk away from someone who stopped respecting you. And you rebuild from a place of strength instead of desperation. Here's what nobody wants to admit. Her conscious wants and her subconscious needs are often complete opposites. She genuinely believes she wants what she says. Her nervous system responds to something entirely different. This isn't manipulation. It's biological conflict. And you can't negotiate with 200,000 years of evolution. Attraction and comfort are inversely related. The more comfortable she feels, the less attracted she becomes. Security kills desire. Uncertainty maintains it. The stable relationship is often an attraction graveyard. Testing never stops. It only pauses. Even in the best relationships, she will test. It's not personal. It's hardwired assessment. The question isn't how do I stop the tests? The question is how do I respond? And here's the truth that will hurt. You cannot love your way out of lost attraction. More dates, more gifts, more attention won't fix it. If she's testing, she's already questioning your value. Trying harder when you should be pulling back accelerates the death spiral. Some women will never be satisfied. High-testing women often have wounds or patterns that make satisfaction impossible. No version of you will ever be enough because the problem isn't you. Recognizing an unwinnable game is crucial wisdom. Modern love sold you a lie that you could be your authentic, comfortable self and maintain passion indefinitely. The truth? Lasting attraction requires intentional tension. Maintain boundaries. Controlled uncertainty. Comfort and passion are competing forces. You must choose which one matters more. So what do? You stop seeking her approval. Your reality becomes the dominant reality. You make decisions and invite her to join. When she tests, you acknowledge briefly and maintain your position. You reintroduce productive uncertainty. You have a life outside the relationship. You're not always immediately available. You let her wonder occasionally. Not manipulation, just living a full life where she's a part of it, not all of it. You establish boundaries without explanation. You state what you will and won't tolerate, then enforce it. Disrespect gets met with space, not debate. And you're willing to walk if those boundaries can't be respected. You become outcome independent. You improve yourself for you, not to keep her. You're willing to lose the relationship to maintain self-respect. And paradoxically, the moment you're truly okay walking away is often when she stops wanting you to. This isn't about games, brother. It's about understanding that the game is already being played whether you're aware of it or not. The test will come. Your only choice is how you respond. The man she fell for wasn't perfect. He was challenging. He had edges. He had boundaries. He had a life. Somewhere along the way, you sanded down those edges. And instead of being loved more, you became forgettable. You cannot maintain attraction by abandoning the traits that created it. The tests aren't punishment. They're asking, are you still the man I thought you were? Your job isn't to pass every test perfectly. Your job is to remain fundamentally unmoved by them. Be the oak, not the reed. If this hit you in the gut, drop a comment. Tell me which test you failed most recently. Let's talk about it. And if you're ready to understand the other ways modern relationships break men, click the next video. I break down the 3 behaviors that make women lose respect faster than anything else. Don't stay blind, brother. The game is real. Learn the rules.